Hello, hello, hello. Welcome. So, a little birdie told me that you missed me, and so here I am, back and ready to answer your questions. Congratulations on your admission, your visa, and getting started with your education. Congratulations on that. Welcome to those people who are joining in. Also, thumbs up to people who are working on the application. A very heartfelt hug to people who, for whatever reason, could not make it this time. Keep in mind that this is not the end of anything. Like, you could try again, you could reapply for either your admission or for your visa application. You can try again. Don't let a denial or rejection be the end of it. But all right, welcome to this episode of FAQ with Winie. I'm your girl, of course, Winie. And today we're going to be answering a lot of questions related to settling in as an international student. Excited for those who have traveled, and so we'll get to chat about that. If you are not here to join us or you have to leave for whatever reason, this video will be up when we complete the live session today. So welcome, and please join the conversation. I want to hear what you think. So, settling in. So yeah, you got your visa, you got admitted, you are in the US or Canada. What does that look like? The question is, I need all the available gist and advice on settling in comfortably in the US. So let me just dive straight into that, okay? Many years ago, I was in your shoes, came in from Nigeria, very green-eyed, or whatever the phrase is for that, and I was trying to figure that out. And I'm sure that you are in that position to trying to figure out what to do when the only life you have known is in a different country. And so the first thing that I'll recommend is relax, breathe, be calm. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to do this all at once, okay? It's one step at a time. It took you a long time to figure out how to live in your previous location or previous country. It took you probably your entire life to figure out, what that looks like. And so don't rush this time. Everything doesn't have to happen at once. Take that pressure off yourself and do this one day at a time. So that's my very first advice before I jump into the nitty-gritty of how to deal with the other things. All right. The next thing I'm going to talk about is how to get your social security number, right? That is very important, of course, especially if you are in the United States. That is something that determines your credit, the job, filing taxes. Like, the number is part of your identity. Now, as international students on F1 status, you can't get that without a job offer. So that's the first thing that you want to do, right? So as you have come, if you're a graduate student, you can get a job offer immediately, or you can start applying for jobs immediately. If you're an undergrad student, you need to wait at least a semester before you apply for jobs, because you want to have a GPA. This is a requirement for a lot of schools. Now, graduate students already come in with a GPA from their previous institution, and so they don't have the same requirements. But either way, you want to get a job, okay? Now, there are many places you can get a job on campus. You can be a teaching assistant, you can work as an office assistant. That was my first job. You can work in so many departments and so many buildings in university. So please do not limit yourself to jobs that sound cool, whatever that means, okay? So you can get a job anywhere and be open. The experience, the connection, the networking is more important than getting a job that is cool, right? There's no job that is less than the other, especially when you're just coming in. Put yourself out there, get what you get at first, because that will then prepare you for subsequent positions that you will be interested in the future. So get a job, and then the next thing you do after you get a job is to get an offer letter from the person or the people or the department that hired you. Once you have your offer letter, some schools, and I just found out about this recently, are now issuing a letter from the International Student Office that you could take to the Social Security office. If this doesn't apply to your school, it is not important, so don't worry about it. You need your job offer, your I-20, your passport, which includes your visa, and a printout of your I-94 record, which you can get online. With these documents, you can go to the Social Security office and apply for your Social Security number. Now, because of the pandemic, a lot of these offices are closed or by appointment only. So you're going to have to call them, set up an appointment, and then get a time to go there in person and apply for your Social Security number. Another thing to note is you can work without your Social Security number for up to 90 days. So if this is not an issue in your school, don't let this limit you. But that's how you can get your Social Security number or SSN. And we also have a post on that at Winie Student World that lists out all these documents so that you don't have to memorize them for this video. Okay? Number 2, let's talk about how to get your state issued ID or your driver's license. Okay, now I also got a state issued ID way back when. I don't have one now because the driver's license is sufficient for that, but the state issued ID is for people who for whatever reason can't get a driver's license, right? And it also helps you if you don't have any other kind of license or documentation from your country. It limits your need to carry your passport everywhere, right? Like, I mean, losing that passport, whew, okay. The Nigerian embassy needs to, they need to grow up. They need to grow up. I just have to say that, right in the middle of this. And if you're from other countries, hopefully your embassies don't give you that much stress. But anyway, losing your passport can be a pain if you don't have an embassy. Well, if you don't have an embassy in the US, or if your embassy makes it a little bit more complicated for you to get that passport reissued or renewed, right? And so what you want to do if you are in this category and you don't have another form of identification that is not your passport, go for a state issued ID card. It's very simple to get. You don't need a Social Security. You can also just go there with your I-20, go there with your I-94 record, and go there with your international passport. And depending on the state, you should be able to get this issued. It saves you the stress of having to carry those other documents with you everywhere you go. So that's something you can get. Now, for driver's license, it differs from state to state. For example, in the state of Pennsylvania, you can drive with your international driver's license or your driver's license from your country of origin for up to 1 year without any issues, right? Not all states have that rule. So you want to find out what the rule in your state is when it comes to a driver's license, right? But it's usually the same process. The only difference for driver's license is that you need that Social Security number to get it. And so back to what I talked about on how to get a Social Security number, add that to all the documents I just listed for your state issued ID. And depending on the state, like I said, some states would, honor your driver's license from your home country and make you take the test for the traffic rules and take your actual driving test, within a short period or in the same day. Some other states will not honor your previous driver's license and make you take the test, get your permit, and wait 6 months or 180 days before you can take your driver's license test, right? Every state has different rules. So you want to find out what the rule in your own state is, and then of course follow that. A lot of these processes can be started early. So like I said, you don't have to rush it, but as soon as you get a window to at least start doing something, you want to do that. You don't want to wait until a year or 2 years before you start working on getting some of these documents, because a driver's license or a state issued ID will make your life a little less complicated. It would also help you blend in to your new environment, because you're not having to whip out your passport every single time you're asked for a form of identification. Okay, how are we doing? Any questions so far? Are your questions answered? Let me know. The next thing I'm going to talk about is opening a bank account. Of course, this is one of the first things that you do. A lot of us come in with a lot of cash in our hands. A lot of us also need an account so that our parents, guardians, or loved ones could send money to us, or send money for our tuition, or send money for settling down or settling in, and so you need a bank account ASAP. All right. Now, I want to at this point give a shout out to two banks that I know that make this process a breeze, right? The first one is Bank of America. I actually appreciate how they make this easy for international students to open an account with them. I'm going to talk more about the process in a few. Another bank that I just found out about recently that also makes this process pretty straightforward is the PNC Bank, right? Those two banks are, they make it easy for international students to open an account. And I'm not saying they are the only banks, I'm saying they are the two that I know. So please feel free to explore what's in your city or your state. Ask questions, like just do what you need to do to know what banks are good. Other international students that have come there before you, ask them questions. The International Student Office, ask them questions. All right, to open a bank account, this is what you need. Your international passport, that includes your visa, your I-20, right? Those are the two main documents that you need. If you have a social security number, good. You can go ahead with that. In fact, if you have a social security number, you can open an account in any bank, period, right? Without the social security number is where things get a little different. And that's where, banks that are familiar with international students tend to make it easier for you to do that. So go there with those documents and the money you plan to put in the account. Request for a temporary debit card if it's one of the banks that offer that, so that you're not like twiddling your fingers and waiting until they send that debit card in the mail, right? You can be free to, purchase things or do what you need to do with a temporary debit card. And make sure that you give them an address that is reliable. Sometimes you're in between accommodations, you don't have something that sticks. It's good to find someone's address that you can use in the meantime, so that when that debit card comes in, you'll be able to get it while you're settling in. So that's it with a bank account. And very importantly, you want to keep a lot of those things private. Of course, your debit card number, your account number and routing number and all that good stuff. You want to be very careful with it so that you don't expose that to the public and put yourself at risk for fraudulent activities. All right, any questions so far? I'm looking, waiting, watching, and I'll go on to the next question. Okay, finding communities as an international student. So first of all, right, some of us are, a little bit shy or not as, not as outgoing. Maybe you don't like crowds. Maybe you tend to be by yourself. It is generally harder to go through a process as difficult as going to a new country by yourself. And so I am encouraging you to step out of your comfort zone, right? You need community one way or the other. You need people that you can talk to. You need people that you can relate with. You need people that are going to help you get the hang of this settling in that we're talking about, right? Do not do this by yourself. I'm going to list a few communities / organizations that have been very helpful, maybe even share some personal stories about how helpful they can be. But the list is actually endless for people that you can connect with, that would embrace you, that will make you feel like you have found, some kind of family far away from home. And it honestly makes the loneliness and the stress of coming into a new place, right? It makes it less difficult. So I encourage you to take advantage of this. All right, let me dive in with some examples. The first is religious organizations. For me, churches were are very helpful for me. Every time I move I move to a new city, I move to a new state, my church has been very instrumental in helping me really get the hang of what's going on there, right? So that's for me. Now, whatever religious organization or whatever your religious practices are, there might be groups or organizations that you can connect with that regards. The thing about a shared faith or sharing faith with people is that it provides some kind of connection where you can tap into and feel like at least you found people that have a common ground with you and build that relationship with. In Orangeburg, South Carolina, many years ago, my church members helped me do my shopping. I remember when the winter was getting close, Christy, she's a very sweet person. She took me shopping, helped me, pick out winter clothes, like helped me really figure out what in the world I was supposed to be doing or what I was supposed to even be buying, at that time. Much later when I joined the Nigerian church, the food, the connection to like where you can buy things, that was also really helpful. Like even my church in Miami, shout out to them. I mean, the gifts and just making sure as a new person that you're not like lost and frantic. So your religious organizations will be very helpful with that. So I encourage you to connect, reach out. Don't feel like you have to force a connection, depending on where you're staying and what options you have. Feel free to explore multiple places until you find a place that, I like to use this phrase, that your spirit connects with and you feel some sense of home. And so if you're a Christian, I encourage you to like explore multiple churches, right? Don't go to, the one that maybe everybody is going to. That may not be what you connect with. So visit multiple places and go where you feel at home. Whatever your belief or your faith is, if that applies to you, I encourage you to do the same. All right. Another organization that you should be connecting with immediately is your International Student Organization or your International Student Association or whatever that's called in your school, right? Some schools also have a separate African Student Union or Asian Student Union or, whatever it's called, like something that is more specific to who you are and your identity. Connect with both, connect with all, connect with either, whichever one. The thing about connecting with an international student organization, right, is that you find other people that are just like you. You find other people who came in at a particular time, who figured it out or are figuring it out, who can show you what they have learned. You don't have to learn everything from scratch. They can tell you, this is what I did, this is how I did it. And, you can start to actually assimilate into the society or your community through their own lessons and experiences. It also becomes a place where you make friends, you connect with people who are also coming from different countries and are just like you. You get to learn about other cultures. Honestly, in my experience, it almost feels like a safe space for you to be like, I'm confused. Are you confused too? And that pressure is kind of gone because everybody is not from the United States or not from Canada or not from whatever country you're present in. So don't separate yourself. Don't be one of those people that is always like, I don't like this, I don't like that. Like I hear a lot of people say things like, oh, I don't want to be among Africans. And you're African. Are you okay? Like, if there are people that have hurt you in the past, okay, I'm sorry, but you cannot, ostracize a whole continent of people and say things like that, or I don't like Nigerians, or I don't like Ghanaians. Like, that's a very weird thing to say out of your mouth when you are Nigerian or Ghanaian or Liberian. Do you understand where I'm coming from now? So, I encourage you to reach out to those organizations, join. If there are leadership opportunities available, apply, do that. That's one way for you to really get into the organization. Way back when I was the queen of the ISA for like 1 year, All right, moving on. Another organization or thing you can actually look forward to or join is whatever immigrant communities are available in your city. Where I did my undergrad, there was an actual Nigerian community, like an actual Nigerian organization that was separate from the college campus. And I mean, they had like independence parties that were bomb. They had like some other events that students could like participate in. There were these professors and adults who were in this city, and it was really good to like connect with them and have them check in on us and see how we are doing, and also like enjoy that feeling of having older people that we could ask questions or look up to, as the case may be. If this exists in your city, shout out to people who live in places like Houston or Atlanta, where you have like a lot of groups, even down to like your village. You might find there, your village community might even be there. If you have any of those bigger African or immigrant communities, I encourage you to join, and also like that could help you start to form communities. All right. Another community group / organization you can explore is, things related to your hobbies: soccer, swimming, volleyball, tennis, writing, art, poetry, whatever you enjoy doing. Like, look, see what's available. If you are in a big university that has, a college for theater arts, or like a college for XYZ, even like a college for like English and writing, like there will be groups of people who have your interest, even though you're not studying that particular course. Like, you could join groups that are in other colleges or other, organizations on campus that are not directly related to what you're studying, because you have an interest in that. It's your hobby, whatever the case may be. So explore that. You would love it. All right, that leads us into like the next tip, which is organizations on campus. There are so many. Depending on the school you even are a part of, there will be hundreds of them, literally, or even more. So again, explore, joining, look at different ones, go to several meetings. I'm not asking you to be a member of 10 organizations. That's the recipe for failure. You understand? But visit quite a few, see what their mission is, what they are interested in doing, see how you connect with them, and identify a few that you want to be a part of. That's another way to make friends and, be a part of a community. And finally, because we are in the age of social media, right? There are meetup apps, there are Facebook groups, there are, you name it, WhatsApp groups. There are all of them. Ask questions, explore, join and exit groups as needed until you find places that are a home for you. So those are a few examples of some common communities, organizations that people are, as an international student, you can join. Definitely not an exhaustive list. So please, explore. If you're an international student or an aspiring international student, tell me in the chat what community or what organization you'll be interested in joining, or what your hobbies are, or what has worked for you. Tell me below. I want to see what you're thinking, or what you have done, or what has worked in the past, or what will work in the present for you. All right, we'll keep going. The next thing I want to talk about with regards to settling in is shopping, buying things. Like, I feel like when you move to a new place, you just feel like a rich person if you have the funds, because you're buying a lot, like everything you're buying from scratch a lot of times. If you're an international student, chances are with those 2 boxes or 2 suitcases of £50 each, like you were not able to bring that much things. So you have to shop, like really shop. Now, the flip side of that is you might also have limited resources, right? You might not be able to buy all that you need. That is okay. That is absolutely okay. The fact that people are using trailers to haul their, new campus things into their dorm rooms does not mean that you have to do that too. If you can't afford it, that's fine. The first tip when it comes to shopping is you don't have to buy everything you need at the same time. You can prioritize, right? Do you need bed sheets now, right? Can maybe some fancy study lamp wait till next month? Can something else wait till 2 months time, right? Spread out the things that you are shopping, or the things that you are going to shop for in settling down, right? There's this thing that my mom says all the time, that it takes years to settle into a place. Now, granted, that may not apply to you. This is really for people who have houses or own houses or, whatever. But, a condensed version of that is it could take months for you to settle into your dorm room. It could take, a whole year for you to settle into who you are as a student, the things that you have, and the things that you enjoy, doing or enjoy having. So please spread that out, because if you try to buy everything at the same time, you feel stressed, strained. You might even put yourself in a financial bind too early if you don't have that much resources at your disposal. So that's the first thing you need to do. Of course, with not getting everything at once, you want to budget and prioritize. I am not a financial person, but there's so many spreadsheets online, so many that you can download for free. So please explore that and pace yourself when it comes to buying things. Now, compare prices if you have the time. It actually could be quite exhausting to check multiple websites for every one single thing that you have. So maybe limit that to like things that are big, that are maybe more expensive than others. Compare prices. Another thing that you could do is to buy things at stores that you can buy them for relatively cheaper. Shout out to Amazon. Some people have their feelings about Amazon and all their shenanigans, but they have cheap things. So you can explore multiple sellers, multiple options to buy anything. Walmart is another organization or another store that also has some very cheap items, right? So my point is, your first year as an international student might not be the time to buy brand names and designers and fancier. You don't have to have a Gucci school bag that year, right? Or the Gucci backpack that year. When maybe in the future, of course, buy that. But if finances are tight for you or you don't have that much, spread it out, look for cheap options, budget. All right, so let's go to food. That was difficult for me. I'm never going to lie to you. Food is something that I love my tongue, and so it took me a while to adjust / adapt, right? Be honest with you, I think maybe the first 2 weeks I just ate fries, ketchup and soda. Definitely not the diet to get on if you're trying to keep a summer board or a winter board, as the case may be. But I'm just saying, if you struggle with food, me and you. So this is my advice when it comes to food. Be open. Try everything at least once. Try it, hate it, then never eat it again. But you don't want to be in a position where as soon as it shows up, before you even know what it looks like or what it tastes like, you have already said no. That would make for a very difficult process, assimilating and adjusting. So try everything at least once. When you go to the cafeteria, if you're an undergrad student, right, try what's served. Taste it, maybe take a little bit. If you don't like it, good. That's checked off the list of something you don't like, right? It might take you take you some time to start to adjust your palate to the way food is cooked and the way food tastes. Definitely 12 years in, for me, I am much different than I was, 1 week in or 2 weeks in. So it might take you a while to start to develop a taste for some of the things that you see. But if you're not open to exploring, you won't even identify the things that you like. And it will shock you, the things that you like and you enjoy, if you open yourself up. So try everything at least once. All right. The next thing that I want you to do when it comes to food, or I suggest that you do when it comes to food, is you should be open to other cultures. Like right now, I love Thai food. I do. I feel like Nigerian food is number one. Thai food is right below it as number two, right? And that came from exploring and trying out things. And that's when I developed, I really love Thai food. Now, everybody might come up with something different, but there's so many other cultures. That's the thing about the beauty in Canada or the US, is that a lot of cultures have come in and you can really explore, right? So whether it's an Indian restaurant or a Mexican restaurant or a Vietnamese restaurant or, a Japanese restaurant, if you have the opportunity and you have the funds, go in there, pick something on the menu, ask them what the people order more often, ask them what's a favorite here, and try it. You may like it. You may start to build a list of foods that you like, because it might not be easy for you to get your village food where you are. Now, this is for those that are Nigerians. If you are in Houston or Atlanta, I'm hating on you. I am, straight up. I'm beefing you seriously, because there are Nigerian restaurants when you like blink like this and open your eye. But if you are in a small city, please explore. And if you're in a place where your own country is not, the culture is not as loud or boisterous, or the opportunities to eat is not like, they're not available, explore. And even if they're available, still explore. You're in a new country, so don't put yourself in a box. Explore food. All right, I have some questions here. Is it true that the food over there is not spicy? Yeah, it's quite bland. That is true. Especially yeah, they don't cook with as much heat as those of us maybe from African countries do. And so that was a struggle for me, because ask people that know me, my middle name is Atarudo. You understand? So yes, it is true that food is not as spicy. All right, so moving on, let's talk about academics, right? What actually brought you to the US or to Canada, which is studying. All right, first things first, depending on the city that you're at, right? Or even the university, some universities are nationally known for their party. They are well known as a place you can go to and be completely useless for 4 years consecutively. You want to be careful as an international student, right? Not to put any kind of damp in your plans to have a good time as an undergrad student, but you have to realize that you're here for a purpose, and the opportunities that the native have, or the leeway that the natives have, you don't have it. So you need to study, because if you fail out of school, you're going to go back home. That's the way it works. Okay, so please study. And another thing I want to say is classes typically, for the most part, get harder as you climb up, right? And so your first and your second year, honestly, that's the time for you to secure that GPA. That's the time for you to really hit the 4.0s and the 3.9s, because the work is not as difficult. Now, this is very relative, of course. I'm not speaking for every major and every university. So please study, go to class, do your homework, right? Even when you're mixing it up with all these fun things and explorations and different things, still do the work that you need to do. Because if you start out on a bad note, it is more difficult to recover moving forward, versus if you start up on a good note, even if the classes get harder and more challenging, you have set yourself up to the point where your GPA would not quickly drop. Because remember, there is something after undergrad and there is something after grad school, and you don't want to put yourself in a position where you're not good enough for a job, you're a terrible candidate because you didn't do well in school. You don't want to do that to yourself. As an international student, you always have to think, how can I make myself stand out? Because the opportunities that you're going to get are the opportunities that are for people who stand out. You're not a native, and so you need to make yourself stand out. I have a question. Are there undergraduate scholarships? Yes, they are. Another question, not to carry crayfish. That's very true. I have quite a lot of crayfish. Okay. The next thing is to figure out the routine that works for you. You're in a new environment. What works for you? Are you a morning person? I am not a morning person. Some people are. So figure out what works for you. Are you going to organize your classes from afternoon till night because that's what suits you? Are you going to stack up all your classes in the morning / early afternoon because that's when you're at your A game? How do you want your day to flow, right? I love starting my day with a cup of coffee. Not big with breakfast, but I need to have my coffee. So what works for you? Because figuring out a routine would kind of help you be more balanced, and every day is not some different whirlwind, especially when you're just coming in to an actual country or to a new country. So figure out what works for you and then enjoy it. All right, so I have another question here. Please, I need an honest answer. Are classes as difficult as they are here in Nigeria? Now, difficulty could be very relative. So if I'm answering based on my own experience, which I didn't do any college or university work in Nigeria, I came here after my A levels and secondary school. I found the classes here easier than the typical kind of coursework I was used to in Nigeria. I also found it easier because assessments were spread out and you didn't have this big exam at the end of the semester that determined everything, right? And so if you're not a good test taker, I'm not the best test taker. I actually have like some weird test anxiety. Having spread out assessments and you doing them actually helps you even get about 70 or 80% before that final work that is 20 or 30%. And so even if you don't score 100% in your final exam or your final paper, you can still get at least a B. A lot of other times, because the assessment is spread out, you master, the work. And so when it gets to the final work at the end of the semester, the final exam, final assignment, you're able to do better and also help yourself score better. So that's my experience. I'm sure other people will have different experiences. I found it easier. Graduate school was difficult, but that's because of the level of work that was required and how much writing and reading I had to do. But again, the same process, because assessments were spread out and I was able to keep up with the assessments. There wasn't, oh my goodness, if I don't pass this one exam, I'm going to fail this course. So that's what I found really helpful about the educational system here versus the one in Nigeria. I'll be curious to know what other people's experiences are. If you're an international student, do you think the coursework was easier in the country you traveled to, or was it easier in your home country? All right, are there full scholarships for need-based students? Yes, they are. This differs from one school to the other, but in general, when it comes to need-based scholarships, you have to provide some kind of proof of your financial, situation for either yourself or your family, and then the school would judge based on that what the financial need is. Another scholarship that a lot of international students get is, the merit scholarship. All right, another question. From research, I saw that most schools give scholarship after one must have been admitted. How authentic is this, please? I'm not sure what you mean by from research and most schools. In my experience, it could happen both ways, depending on the school and what they do. I got all my scholarships at the time I was getting admitted into the school. There are people who, while they're already in there, would qualify based on their GPA and other things and then apply for scholarship. But I don't know that most is an accurate percentage. I would say it usually depends on the school and how they operate. All right. So I do have two questions here that are not related to settling down in the US, but I'm still reading the chat for questions that you have for me. So I'm going to answer those two questions and then we can keep chatting until our time here is over. All right. Can someone with low grades get a visa for community college? All right. So your low grades matter when you're actually applying for admission to the school. Right? When you say you have low grades, there are nuances that that would need to be explored or talked about to determine how good or how bad your situation actually is. Now, what do I mean by that? Let's say, for example, you are in a country that has a relatively more difficult academic structure than the US, right? When your transcript is evaluated and converted to the US or Canadian standard, wherever that school is located, you may actually do better than your home country graded US. I have seen this happen multiple times. And so it's difficult to say whether your low grades are really low, meaning they are going to be low both in your home country and low after your transcript is evaluated, or whether they are low and could be bumped up after evaluation. Again, differs based on your country, and what exactly you mean by low grades, right? So your grades matter when you get an admission. Now, after you get an admission and the circumstances that surround your admission, meaning is there a scholarship involved? How much is the scholarship? What course are you going to study? What's your plan after that course? That's all going to play out at the embassy. With community college, I have seen this happen multiple ways, right? So the first is that you go to the embassy and the consular officer is not convinced that you want to go study engineering at the associate degree level, which is what a community college gives you, an associate degree. You might have to explain why you applied to a community college versus a 4-year university where you're going to get a bachelor's degree, right? Now that's between you and the consular officer and how you articulate yourself and whether they buy the story or not, right? Situation number one. Situation number two, you're going to a community college and you're paying a heck of an amount of money to go there. So you're paying $60,000 a year, and the consular officer is trying to figure out why you're going to spend that much money for this degree, even if you have a good story about why you want to do that or come back. Again, do they buy it or not, right? That's if you don't have any kind of scholarship. The third is, again, how you articulate what your next move is. That's what matters. I have seen people get a visa to go to a community college, and I've seen people not get the visa for several other reasons. So it's hard to say because I don't know your specific situation and I don't know what recommendations to give you. But can you get admission with low grades? Yes, you can. Can you get a visa to study at a community college? Yes, you can. All right. Next question. Please, I want to find out if I'll be allowed to come to Canada to study with my children. Yes, you can. You can apply to study. You would have to meet certain specifications, of course, be able to bring your children over. You have to show proof of funds, and that could be determined by the school or, whatever the Canadian application process, visa application process is. But the answer is absolutely yes. All right. So I am done with my questions. Oh my goodness, you had me talking for a while. I need to breathe. So now talk back to me. What are your questions? What have you learned? What are you thinking? Here, if you don't have a paid job, go find anywhere, any organization, offer your services for free. At any point in time, you should be doing something. You should absolutely be doing something, because it would look terrible if you say you graduated in 2016 and we're in 2021 and there is nothing meaningful you have done for 5 years. Again, it doesn't have to be a paid job. Find something, be productive, because you want to have something to talk about when you are meeting and emailing and trying to connect with people in different schools. Be a productive citizen of the world. All right. How does one approach racism? Oh my goodness, that's a loaded question. Very loaded one. All right, in the next, how many minutes we have left, one of the things, or let me share a few things about that. First, it's a shock the first time you experience something racist, right? Especially if you look like me. When somebody treats you or mistreats you based on how you look, first of all, it comes across as a shock. I tell people that as a Nigerian, we have so many issues, but racism is not one of it, because it's different. So you shouldn't be anticipating it, but also know that if it happens, you can take a step back to kind of process what has happened and try not to get into fights in public. It's not good, don't do that, but take a moment and process what has happened, right? If it happens to you. Being part of communities where you can share experiences and get general advice and tips on how to navigate racism in your specific location is also very helpful, right? A lot of universities have a channel that you can report something racist that happens to you. Explore that, use it, especially if the racist behavior is coming from somebody superior. don't take it in silence, right? You can report this even anonymously if you're afraid of any backlash, right? Take advantage of that too. Also, you want to surround yourself with people who have your best interest, right? Now, open yourself to all groups of people and all cultures. But if you're in a group where you constantly experience racist remarks, racist comments, that's not good for your mental health. You don't have to be friends with people who don't value you for who you are, right? So those are just like a few nuggets. Like I said, it's a different kind of conversation. There's racism in the educational system, there's racism in the work system, there's day-to-day racism, like people following you around in stores and not responding to you when you talk to them in Walmart or some other places. Crazy things happen, but again, it doesn't mean that they are not so many more amazing things. So I don't want you to be afraid or worried, but at the end of the day, know that if you experience something racist, you can deal with it, you can report it, and you can move forward from it. All right, it's good to see you all. I hope you have an absolutely fabulous weekend. I will be connecting with you again either via DM or post. We're going to do sessions like this once a month moving forward. So ask your questions when you see us put something up on our IG story. Contribute to those conversations. We're all in this together. So happy to have you all as part of our community. And one more question before I log off. What if there's no Nigerian Student Association in the school? How do we get to find and form communities other than through churches? I answered all of this at the beginning of this video, so please rewatch the replay of the live sessions. There's so many other communities that you can find that are not churches or specifically your country of origin or your continent of origin, and there are other ways to actually connect that we have already talked about. All right, I will see you all again in my next video or live or whatever we do here with the Student World. Have a fabulous weekend, and if you are in the US, have an amazing long weekend, barbecues, dancing and all the fun things that go on during Labor weekend. I will see you all again soon.